guys, welcome to Road Rage Podcast. This is the third episode of the first series, House Construction. So in the last video we discussed about the civil construction and the cost involved in it. So most of it is just contract cost, and the only one extra cost that happened for me was basically the column footing foundation, which was extra, and that's mainly it. There is not much extra cost that is involved in the civil construction, right? So today we'll talk about the electrical. So the electrical stage starts quite early actually in the civil construction. So the first bit of electrical work that is done is actually the electrical pipes which is laid out, the black pipes which is laid out in the sunshade. Right, so that is if you have or if you're planning to put the COB lights below the sunshades to give a kind of a spotlight effect on the ground floor or even the first floor. So in those cases you will have to put the electrical pipes and the junction boxes and everything before you cast the sunshade in concrete. Right, so what they do is that they first lay these in the shuttering of the sunshade slab. After the metal work is done, and they'll lay the black plastic pipes, the electrical conduits before the concrete is cast in the sunshade, right? So that's the first bit of electrical work that is done, and then in the next stage again they'll continue this electrical pipe laying, the electrical conduit laying in the ground floor roof slab. So there also, for the fine points and for the ceiling light points and everything, you will need electrical points, right? So they'll put junctions and they'll put electrical conduits all throughout the ceiling also, right? Before you cast the first floor slab. So so for doing this, you need a proper planning in terms of the electrical work, right? So before even the construction starts, during the design phase, they would the architect's firm would draw this full electrical diagram for the house. So based on the kind of based on your requirements, like if you want specific pipes, like for example for me, I wanted a line to be present, an Ethernet line to be present from the ground floor where the internet modem is kept to my office room. So that was a thing that I told them. So they had specifically put electrical conduits for that, specifically for that, to do it. Because if you don't do it, then the only option for you is to either pull it through outside, which will be ugly, and second option is to pull it through the electrical lines itself, electrical conduits itself. That might be a bit tricky because those lines, those pipes will be already filled with the electrical wires, and pulling a big fat Cat 6 cable through it might be tricky. It might get stuck in the junctions and all those things might happen. So it's always best to think about all these things before you start construction, and then tell them in advance that you want certain things like this, right? And also I wanted to put speaker wire conduits from the front of the family living to the back of the family living. So since I mentioned that to them, they had put specific conduits for these things. They had planned it, so that was basically through the floor. So it was not done, anything was done through the roof slab. So that's the second thing. So for us to do all these things, we need a proper plan, like the electrical drawings and everything needs to be done. So for that, for the architect's firm to do this drawing, you need to give them specific inputs regarding what all things you need. So just think of electrical cabling and anything. So for example, like if you are going to use a set-top box, and if you want the cabling to be done from your first floor roof, that is your terrace, to your TV unit, either on the first floor or on the ground floor, and you can actually do it in a concealed way, because otherwise what happens is everything is pulled through the outside and it looks very ugly. So to avoid that, if you think of all these specific scenarios, you can tell them that you need these things, and they can do it specifically for you, concealed, right? And then another thing that we did was, it is not electrical as per se, but it was the CCTV line laying. So the way, and I actually did it from a contractor outside, not within my civil contractor. I got a firm who does the CCTV and everything from outside to do the concealed work of the cabling for the CCTV, and they did it outside the house. So basically, all the CCTVs are pointed from the house outward, and we had the architect had placed 11 CCTVs all around the house, like even the first floor and the ground floor. So for that, what they did was they routed the cables through the outside of the house. So one thing that happened, one cost that was increased was the amount of cable that was required to route all these wires. The CCTV wire is not Cat6, it is something called a 3+1. So that's the name of the wire. So it's like a Cat6 cable, it's like a fat cable, and they routed it around the perimeter of the house into one central location under the stairs. So recently, when my contractor plumber, electrician came to the house to do some work to set up the the water level control for the water tank, he told me that they don't do it like that. They do it inside the house through the floor, right? So that way the amount of cable will pretty much half. Because for me, the cable alone required some 600 meters of cable, and the total cost of just doing the concealed work and laying the cable for the CCTV, it cost me around 36,000 rupees, right? And the reason why I went outside and not with my regular contractor for this was because their cost, just the labor alone, was 25,000. I thought that was too much, and of course their margin will be there in this labor contract, because generally what happens is when you tell your full contract civil contractor that you want to get something done, like for example the concealed pipe laying for CCTV, what will happen is they will find a person who will do this for them. So they'll find a third party contractor, right? And they'll give this contract to them. Okay, so what will happen is, so they'll say a number. So third party, let's say they say 30,000. Okay, so that is including their margin on the work, right? And then it will come to my full contractor, and he'll put his margin on top of it. So that might be some 10%. So that will become 33,000, right? So because of this, I thought maybe because of this labor cost alone to lay concealed wiring for the CCTV, when they gave me a quote of 25,000, I thought it was too much, and I went outside and did it. But then it became 25,000 plus another 11,000 for just the cable. I don't think cables cost that much. Maybe it does, I don't know. So anyway, so it came up to 36,000, and they did it like this. They did it through the outside and cost me a lot of money in terms of cable. And another problem that my electrician said was that, see, if you do it like that, the problem is all the junction boxes and everything is getting covered. It's getting concealed with cement, right? So you cannot pull in future if you want to replace the cables because of some issue. You won't be able to do that because all the junction boxes and everything is covered with cement, right? So generally how they do this is really good electricians, they will plan things like from one junction box to the next junction box, and from next junction box to the next one. So like that they'll plan. So they can easily pull a cable anywhere in the house. So they'll plan things like that. But if you do it through the outside, there'll be too many junction boxes and all of these things are covered, right? And if you do it through the inside, they can leave these junction boxes open here and there, right? And they can pull these wires through it. So that is expertise. If you get a good electrical contractor, then all these things will happen. Like for example, for me, the benefit of this was seen like 2 days back when I wanted to do the auto water level controller. So basically, when the water gets empty in the water tank, I wanted the motor to work automatically, fill the tank, and when the tank is full, I wanted the motor to turn off. This is basically the auto level controller, and this is something that it has been there for the last, I think, 15-20 years. Okay, because manufacturers like V-Guard and Videon, they have these devices that you can install in your water tank, and it's connected to your motor switch, and it does this controlling and everything, right? But the problem with that is, if you haven't already laid the line for these things, then you will need to pull a 1.5 mm two cables, 1.5 mm cables from either from your tank to your motor switch, or from your tank to your motor itself, right? And you can do it in two ways. One is you can put those black pipes outside your house, pull the line through them, and then install it like that. But since we had done so much concealed work, and we had done it in a proper way, because our architect had basically architect and the contractor had made sure that no pipes would be seen from the outside of the house. Everything was concealed, everything was very neat. We didn't want to do that, right? So then the next option is to pull it through the already laid and concealed electrical conduits that we had in the house. Okay, so one problem is that the tank, the location of the tank and the location of the switch were in the two extremes of the house, right? One was in one end, the other was in the other end, right? And our house plan is in a long kind of model. It's not a square house, it's like a long rectangular house plan. So that again causes a lot of wire to be pulled, right? But since the electricians had done the wiring and the electrical conduit work in a proper way, they could not easily, but they could do it. That's the first thing. Like if another electrician came into the house and he wanted to figure out how to do this and all that, it would take them a very long time, because these guys had already done it, and they had already put in provisions to make sure that they could pull a wire from any corner of the house to any other corner. They could do it easily. But then even then, it cost me 90 meters of this 1.5 cable. Okay, and just to lay the cable alone, it cost me 4,000 rupees, including the labor and the material. Labor itself was 2,500. Because cable pulling is not an easy job. It took them like 2-3 hours to do this. And yeah, so but that's the thing. So if you do your electrical work using a good electrical contractor, the benefit of that will be seen for years to come. Like if you want to do any maintenance or any additional points or anything like that, you could easily do it, because they have already put in provisions for these things, and they had they had thought about this extra motor or things like that. Like if suppose I wanted to get a Kerala Water Authority connection, and then I would need another motor to pump that water from the ground floor to the top floor, right? So to make provision for that, they had put in a separate switch box, a separate module, the electrical module where you install your switches in the kitchen, so that I had the provision to install a second switch for the motor control, right? And they had actually put another empty pipe through one of the areas, so that we could pull wires through that cable, conduit, and then install these things. Okay, so that's the thing. So if you get a good electrical contractor, then all these things get managed very well, right? Then so this is majorly regarding the electrical work. Then yeah, okay, so another so these things, the normal electrical conduit work and the wire laying and all that stuff, it gets covered in your contract. Okay, you don't need to pay anything extra for that. Now the extra stuff is what I said, like the wire pulling that has to be done for your water level control, that is extra. And then one major extra cost that will come is, especially if you're going to install or if you're going to do false ceiling in your house, is that the extra wiring that has to be done for inside the false ceiling, right? So normally in the contract they would have mentioned in a room 2 light points and 1 fan point, and also in the bathroom there will be 1 light point and 1 exhaust fan point. Okay, that is all that they will provide in the contract. Okay, so all these things will either come till the roof or some point in the wall, and that's it. The wire will end there. Okay, but now when you install false ceiling, and if you're going to install multiple panel lights, like diffused 6 watt, 9 watt or 12 watt panel lights, then that would require extra cabling. Okay, so that would require extra cabling, and that would require extra conduits to be put in on the roof of all the floors, including your bathroom. Okay, so that is an extra cost. And that cost for me, I think, including the material, the wire. So basically what you need to purchase is again these electrical conduit pipes. Then there'll be flexible hoses, junction boxes, then the wire itself. So wire, I think for me, the full extra wires that I purchased was around 180 meter boxes of 3. So that is 360 plus 180, and you can calculate how much that is. Like more than 500, almost 600 meters of 1 mm wire I had to purchase. So that wire itself was 16,000 bucks, and rest of the electrical conduit and junction boxes and everything, it came to I think 16 or 17,000 rupees. Okay, this is just the wiring. Then the labor of all these things would also add up. That I think was I'm not sure. I think that was 16 or 20,000 rupees. There is 3 people working for 3 or 4 days to do this whole thing, right? So all these things have to be put in your double height ceiling also. So that is also there. They need to put up those platforms, and then only then they can install all these things. So that is also expensive. So the labor cost of this thing is also extra. So I think overall for the false ceiling extra electrical work, it cost me somewhere around 90,000 to 1 lakh rupees. That is an extra cost. Then what else? Yeah. Then okay. So now you put your wiring in your false ceiling and everything, and once that wiring is done, it's after that they do the closing of the false ceiling. They install the actual false ceiling. So before that, the false ceiling guys would just come in and put in the frames to install the false ceiling. Okay, so they don't actually install the ceiling at first. Okay, so it is only done after the false ceiling cabling is done. So after the false ceiling cabling is done, they'll come in and they'll plaster the whole thing. They'll put the gypsum boards and they'll finish off the false ceiling. And after that, you will go and purchase your lights, your diffused 6 watt or 9 watt or 12 watt panel lights. That is of course an extra cost that is not covered in your electrical contract, right? And those panel lights, false ceiling lights alone, the normal ones, it cost me around I think 1 lakh, because there were 72 panel lights that I needed to install, and each one of them was around 350 400 rupees a piece. 350. Okay, okay. Then we had lots and lots of LED strip lights. Okay, so LED strips, I think total overall it came up to some 30 meters or more than that, and their drives, the strip lights itself is not that costly. A meter is, I don't know, some 30-40 bucks. But then the choke is a bit costly. Like each one of them costs some 600-700 bucks, right? And it's better to get a good something from a good manufacturer which has warranty, because if these things go in, it's a real pain to replace it, because everything is concealed, right? So the drives and all also, they will conceal it inside right next to one panel light. So always better to get those. So those panel lights alone, and this LED lights was another, I think 30 or 40,000 rupees extra. So that is extra. Your panel lights are extra, your LED lights are extra. Then comes your fancy lights. Okay, so fancy lights for me, we did it in a very minimal way, in the sense that we had one wall fancy light, and then we had one hanging light in each of the bedrooms. Okay, so one right above the bed and one in the corner of the bed, the hanging light. So hanging lights altogether, the fancy lights altogether, it cost me about, and of course in the balconies we had like small lights like that. So fancy lights around, I think it came to 40,000 bucks for the fancy lights, right? So lighting is right now 1.4 lakhs. Okay, now what are the lights you need to purchase? So next is your external lights. So I mentioned in the beginning that you will put electrical conduits in your sunshade to install these COB lights in the sunshade, right? Yeah, so now you need to buy the exterior lights for your house. Okay, so this is not garden lights but exterior lights. Okay, exterior COB lights to give good ambience to your house from the exterior of the house, right? So for us, we had some 10-12 COB lights, and then we had this up and down firing lights on our what do you call it, the cladding stones. Okay, so to give a cladding stone a really good look during the night, we had that up and down firing lights, and then couple of up firing lights so that will give a shade on the cladding stone. It gives a nice look to the house at night. So those were also purchased, and then exterior light is your so this is also extra. These exterior lights are also extra. Then another exterior wiring or electrical thing that we do is on the boundary wall. So in the boundary wall, if you want to install lights, right? So otherwise the problem is your courtyard and your landscaping and everything will be really dark during the night. So for that, what we did was the extra electrical cabling needs to be laid, right? So from the house, a electrical conduit needs to go to the wall, and in the wall, so for me it was like the front facing L-shaped wall, which was facing the road. We plan to put lights on the inside of the wall facing the house. So we had to cut the wall to lay the electrical conduit pipes through the wall wherever we wanted to install the lights. Okay, so that was extra. So that mostly the cutting part is only the labor work, and then laying the pipes for it and pulling the wire. So wire is extra there. So so that is an extra cost. And then the lights on the wall, that is also extra, right? And then we'll also install these bulkhead lights on the house to give lighting on the back side of the house, your work area and places like that. So the wiring, the external lights on the walls, that was around 25,000. Was it 25,000? No, around 20,000 rupees, including the labor and the material. It was around 20,000 rupees. And the exterior lights, so the exterior lights are one thing is these COB lights on the sunshade and everything, and then the next one is these lights on the interior boundary wall, right, facing the house. So that was, one of them was some $1,200. So these are like weatherproof small lights, but it will put a triangle of light on top of triangle of light on the bottom, and that would give a nice ambience to the house. I really like that lights. So those lights, and then bulkhead lights behind the house, the work area and all those places, to make sure there is enough lighting at night if you want to go out and do something at night. Then so these lights, and then we had 2 track lights installed in our 2 courtyards from the dining room. So basically both the courtyards had plants lined up on 2 sides. So there is one courtyard like this, there's a sliding door here, so there are plants lined up like this. So and there were golden bamboo planted at the edge of the courtyard. So to give it a nice look at night, they put a track light inside the wall courtyard, so that will give a good ambience. So same thing we did in the other courtyard as well. So those lights, and then this up firing and down firing lights on the cladding wall, and what else was there? So these external lights on the wall, on the house, bulkhead lights, everything, it cost me around 88,000 rupees for these lights. Okay, so the installation and everything is also covered in the labor of this exterior. The wall lights, the installation was covered. Now the another extra cost that will come is, see, now we have put the wiring for the false ceiling, now we have purchased the lights, then they need to install these lights, right? They need to install these lights, make sure the wire from the lights to the switch is correct, and all the exterior lights switches need to be located in one location, so that you can switch on all your exterior lights in one go. and each individual the profile light, the LED lights, and the ceiling lights. So ceiling lights for each bedroom there will be like 7 or 9, and there will be 2 switches to control them. So if it is 7, 3 will work on one switch, the other 4 will work on the second switch. So so they had to do all this wiring and installation, everything, right? So the installation of these lights is extra labor cost, okay, and also installation of the fan is extra labor cost, installation of the fancy lights is extra labor cost, and we had one chandelier also. So the chandelier cost is 21,000 rupees, and installing the damn thing cost me 6,000 rupees because they had to install this platform again because it is in the double height area. So they need to install this platform again and then do all the, and there was a couple of issues in that chandelier. Because when I bought the chandelier, this is like very important, okay. When I bought the chandelier, they had mentioned that the chandelier would reach a height of 2.5 meters, right? But that particular chandelier was set up in such a way that it would only reach around 1.5 meters, right? So that was a really bad shock when we because when I went there, I didn't get a sense of what its height was. So when I asked the shopkeeper, they said no, you can install it up to 2.5 meters in length. And my interior supervisor guy, he said that we need something which is 3 meters long. So I thought 2.5 meters, 3 meters long, then maybe we can adjust and all. So they also said, the shopkeeper also said, yeah, you can adjust and everything. I bought it, kept it at the house, and after a month they came to install it, and we gave it. And to install this thing again, you need to put that platform in the double height area, and installing that itself is a huge pain. And they did all these things, and they had planned it to do it on the day of Vishu. Okay, so April 15th, 2023. And when they installed it, they found out that it was only 1.5 meters long. It is not even clearing the handrail on the first floor, so it had to reach all the way till the ground floor. So then we were scratching our heads thinking of what to do, and it is Vishu, right? And the next day is Sunday. So the interior supervisor guy, he called up the vendor, the chandelier vendor, and he said, we can't do anything now, we got to wait till Monday, and then we can maybe think of something. Maybe we can get extra cable and then extend it downwards and everything. So Sunday we couldn't do anything. Then on Monday I went to the site, and the electrician said, sir, if you buy me this wire, 20 meters of this 2-core wire, then I'll fix it for you. So I did that. I went and bought this 20 meter wire, gave to him, and he fixed it. He made it really long, he made it really nice, and he installed it on Monday. Okay, the whole day he had to spend for that. Now so that was a real pain in the butt. So make sure that when you are getting the chandelier, make sure that in the showroom you can see it at the height that you want. If you want 3 meters, tell them to show it to you in 3 meters height. Okay, otherwise don't buy it, go for something else. And but these chandeliers also, it's kind of it's not that expensive, because the cost of the chandeliers comes in the length. So basically it is one module, like one light, okay, some one fancy light, something hanging light, and then you can have 10 lengths of this. Okay, so like 10 of these hanging things, and they install it in a round platform on the roof. That is how it works. So you can change the number of the hangings that you want. So each hanging for each light cost about 1,500, 2,000 rupees, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 rupees for each height. Okay, so if you get something with 10, that will be 2,500 into 10, 25,000 rupees. Okay, so that is how this works. And you can go to these chandelier shops or electrical lighting shops, and you can even make one custom made, right, based on what you want. It might not be available readily, but then you can customize it and get it any way you want. If you want just 5, they'll get a plate for just with the 5 to install these 5 hangings, 5 lengths, and then you can get a leather. If you want 10, you can get one with 10. If you want 20, you can get that big platform, and you can customize it. So that is also there. Now okay, so chandelier is done, and installing chandelier, the cost is extra, and installing each of these lights, fans, everything is the labor is extra. And for me, installing all these things, the labor for installing all the lights and fancy lights and exterior lights and everything, it came to around 66,000 rupees. Okay, So for me, I think the total lighting alone, excluding the wiring, the extra cabling that I did for false ceiling, the lighting alone, I think it cost me around 3 lakhs, including everything, including the labor, including the material and everything, cost me around 3 lakhs. Okay, and this is all extra. That's that's the thing you need to remember. These are extra things. Okay. So then electrical. What else? Is there something that you guys need to be aware of? Then basically it is this: if you want some extra cabling, if you want to install 2 TVs or 2. And another thing that we did conceal was for the solar panel. We put a concealed pipe through the wall, that's like a big thick pipe through the wall to make sure that when we do the solar panel in the future, that the cables don't come through the outside. It is put through the inside. Then make sure that if you are planning to install a pressure pump, make sure that you have an electrical connection on the rooftop, right, on the terrace, so that you can install because the pressure pump is installed right next to the water tank. So make sure that you have a electrical connection over there, so that you can connect your pressure pump. Then if you want any external switches or power plugs, right, you need to tell them, because for example, if you want to plug in your pressure washer or vacuum cleaner or any of those things, you need a weather sealed box inside which you will install your power plugs. So you can have 16 amps or 5 amps. If you are going to use any heavy electrical equipment which needs 16 amps, then you need that big plug, and it also needs to be inside a weather sealed box. So I think that is pretty much it in terms of electrical. And the major electrical extra thing is this light installation, the lights itself. And all those things are kind of extra. The contract itself, it won't have much of the lights or anything in that, right? And this is actually more than I expected, because I knew about this labor for installing the lights, that I was aware about, but the actual cost of these total lights, I had, like, maybe I budgeted half of it. I think I budgeted around 1.5 lakhs for the lights, or maybe 2 lakhs. No, 1.5 lakhs. And the rest of it was a bit of a surprise. But then, as we discussed in the last video, we learned to adjust the expenses and the fund we manage. Right, I think that's it for this video. So in the next video, we can talk about, what should we talk about? Should we talk about plumbing? We can talk about plumbing. Right, so the sanitary ware, the plumbing and all that stuff, we'll talk about in the next video. Okay, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe, and see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.